Meanwhile, residents in parts of the Kouga Local Municipality in the Eastern Cape have been evacuated as raging and uncontrolled fires continue to spread. And as firefighting efforts there continue, concerns are now mounting over the impact it will have on wildlife. Let's now bring in Mr. Len du Plessis, who's the manager for the environmental planning at Garden Route National Park, who will be giving us an update on the damage and what this fire has done to the wild animals, particularly in the park. Len, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So very worrying reports of some dead animals as well as vegetation as a result of these fires. Len, as the Garden Route National Park, talk to us about some measures that you have in place for the safety of wildlife as well as vegetation in case there are these types of fires. Good afternoon.
Hi, good day, Alicia. Thanks for having me. I should perhaps just start off by saying there's a few fires raging in the southern Eastern Cape, as you've reported on. And the fire that we are involved in, the fire at Keerboom's in the Garden National Park, is probably the largest one of those, of the 5 or 6 fires currently out of control. What makes our fire different is we actually wanted to burn. It's part of the natural patterns and processes of the fynbos. So it's a natural process underway, but our job is just to guide it away from infrastructure and lives and livelihoods. So what is actually happening in the Keerboom's Sukral fire, just the northwest and northeast of Plett, is actually a natural process. It started with lightning on the 22nd of December already. We got a management system whereby we allow the fire to burn, but we monitor it very closely, and we set certain trigger lines. If the fire crosses a certain trigger line, then we go into suppression mode. So unlike your previous insert, where the main objective of suppression, ours is to monitor it and guide it to burn as part of its natural patterns and processes of the fynbos. Now, I had to give you that background to actually answer your question in terms of the animals. It's a natural process, as I've explained, and most animals are adapted for these conditions. So they've each got their own strategy of escaping the fire and getting away from the fire. But there are going to be some loss, of course, but that's all natural. That's unfortunately the way that nature is, survival of the fittest, if I can put it that way.
Absolutely right there, Len. I mean, we understand that these fires were actually even too fast, even for responders to swiftly contain, leading to, of course, indefinite temporary closures from your side. How are operations at your parks now?
Operations is good. As I explained earlier, the fire is probably about 12,000 hectares. To put that in layman's terms, 24,000 rugby fields. So it's quite a large fire. The fire line itself is probably in extent of 50, 70 kilometers in totally inaccessible terrain. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to guide the fire to burn itself out into natural buffers like large rivers and indigenous forest, which doesn't burn, and as well as old fire scars where there's young felt. So it's really we're playing a game of chess with the fire, directing it where we want it to burn and keep it away from lives and infrastructure, or we can affect lives and livelihoods of people. So we got 2 trigger points. The one is to the north, Misgund, where we got about 60 to 80 people on the ground with extensive aerial resources, suppressing the fire that it doesn't cross a certain trigger point. And then we got one to the south, just north of Plett, in the Crags area, the 2 hotspots that we are there. I see you've got some photos on the screen. Yeah, that's the Sukral area. So at this stage, fortunately, no major loss of infrastructure. Maybe some minor orchards in the Longkloof area. It's been damaged, but no major infrastructure loss or any fatalities, human fatalities. But the fire is very spectacular to see it from a distance because it's quite thick vegetation that burns inside the mountain. So the people from Pietermaritzburg Bay has had quite dramatic sunsets for the past few weeks. And it seems like the fire's on their doorstep, but fortunately, it's not. It's like up in the mountains, and then the smoke can also be misleading. The smoke can cause the the effect that it's very close to towns and townships, but it's still far away from those. We are monitoring very closely.
Absolutely, and we are glad there hasn't been any reports of any injuries as well as fatalities. Now, Len, I'm sure you heard me speaking to our meteorologist there who says the municipalities also need to plan better. Let's talk about that. I mean, let's just talk about as current as well as future containment measures. What type of mitigating plans are in place to ensure that wildlife and vegetation are well protected from these fires? As the region is pretty prone, we know, to these fires, I suppose it also then becomes very critical as an environmental office to pay special attention to these plans.
Yeah, Alicia, I could perhaps just say, from our perspective, and I think it rings true for all the other incidents as well. It's a multi-agency effort, these huge fires. You need cooperation between different spheres of government, private landowners, fire protection associations, etc. So to strengthen partnerships during the off times when there's no fires actually helps a lot. That when the fire actually occurs, that people are well versed in what to do. So preparedness in terms of incident simulation is very important, and building those networks between the different agencies. So when it comes to D-Day, when the fire actually does break out, that everybody works together with a common goal.
All right, Len, thank you so much for that contribution there. That is Mr. Len du Plessis, who is the Garden Route National Park Manager for Environmental Planning, talking to us about how they actually plan for fire flare-ups in that particular region. And as we understand, he says it's quite natural. So they do actually monitor some of the fires that do burn within the area so that it doesn't reach a certain break point.